I was also gonna ask if you have any of the questions, if you like ask people on your story.
I did ask on the story. Right now, I checked it just now. Actually, there's no response.
Fuck.
It's just like,
Dude,
I don't know. I
that
guess
happens.
people don't care.
The same thing happened when I asked, like, oh, what big questions do you wonder about? And I got like 3 questions. I guess no one wonders anymore, or
Nah,
they feel like nervous about asking, or like what question to put up there or something.
yeah, I think so too. And a lot of the times, I think with social media too, it's just like people, what's up? What are you smiling like? Who got you smiling like that, bro?
Dude, because one response just says, "You look sexy." that's that's the that's the
Oh man,
that I have two questions, and one's that.
I
Are they aware of the Indic symbols on their land that are left prior to their civilization? Oh, the indications of symbols on their land that are okay.
all
So do
right.
they know? I guess. Yeah, I guess that's a pretty nice question.
Yeah, pretty nice question. We're gonna ignore that. Anyway, so
Yeah.
anyways, yeah.
Oh, I guess no. I was thinking we could write it down or something, and then as we chat, we can like address it. So I'll write that
Okay,
down.
okay, all right, okay. It just sounded
And
great, like you bring it up and then it's just like, yeah, it's a good question. Anyways, so how's it going?
yeah, I didn't know if you wanted to answer it right now.
No, no. I mean, now you pushed it back to the flow, so the flow is gonna catch up, and we'll check that later.
Because
Man,
I mean,
yeah.
yeah, I'm not even sure with that if they're aware of if like the people there actually like think about the theories that like Graham Hancock and Brian Forrester propose about it being a sort of advanced ancient civilization that built the megaliths, and then the Inca just reconstructed what they had built. I'm not sure. That's honestly a good question. If
It
people
is.
even, yeah, we have to ask when we're over there. Hey, have you guys read Fingerprints of the Gods?
Just the indigenous
Like that.
community there, Yeah, just disrespectful as fuck. You
Yeah, it
guys
would be.
know that your ancestors just didn't build this, right? It's
Yeah.
like on some really out of pocket shit. No, and yeah, too, for what I know, their ancestors probably built it. I think they're way more in tune with nature over there, and
Yeah,
like
for sure.
everything. I'm so curious how that experience is gonna go. Like I've never been in Peru, never been in South America, so I think it's gonna be destined to be quite a cool experience. My mediocre Spanish is definitely not going to help me, except like maybe a little bit, but like I
I
don't
think
know.
you'll manage. You can speak Portuguese pretty well, right? Or understand it?
Yeah, I speak that pretty well, but like I feel like I don't know. Why do the Peruvians like Brazil ain't that close?
Yeah.
So I mean
I
maybe.
think, yeah, we'll be fine, dude, as long as you hang with me and they will be like, because when I talk with a person that was just here, that one of my friends of my parents that came to visit here and where I'm living in Merida, she's actually Peruvian, and she told me if you're speaking Spanish over there, they're not gonna try to like raise the prices of anything, and try to, because they think you're, she said, a gringo, which is like the Mexican word for like someone American or whatever.
Yeah.
So if we talk in Spanish, they're not going to try to, I don't know, take advantage of us. So just pretend, just say "see" it, then shake your head, and
Yeah,
then I'll be talking.
yeah. Just vale every time. Just,
Yeah.
vale. Sí, sí. Yo me entiendo. Sí, sí.
Yeah.
No.
We'll be fine.
Yeah, it will be fun, man. It's one of the great situations. I was back when I was living in Portugal. Like we were at this beach, and there were a bunch of Portuguese teens, and they played. I don't know what you call it, but like you have a football, like a soccer ball. You just like pass it back and forth, and like how to keep it in the air. and it jumped away from them, and so like, you know, I wanted to like kick it back to them, but I hit it pretty bad, you know. And one of them was kind of laughing like, you know, look at that gringo, you know. And I was like, man,
Oh man.
and I hit him with that, I speak Portuguese, you know, I can understand you, caralho, you know. And they were like, oh shit, respect. And then I played with them. It was a nice turn of events.
Nice. It's always the football it's like the initiation ritual.
Yeah,
And
especially,
then
man.
and then you're in there. You're one of them.
It unites. I think in general, sport is so fascinating. Like even with recently the Euro was here in Germany, you know, like the whole European football thing was just, it's crazy. It's crazy how many people are interested in it, and how it captures entire nations and areas completely
Yeah.
with these games going on. It's so fascinating, but also how it brings you together. You know, I haven't watched football in a long time, but this time, since it was in Germany, I went to a lot of public viewings, you know, like at pubs or wherever, just watching it with a whole bunch of people. And it's so connecting, you know, like, you
It
know,
is.
Germany scored a goal and everyone's like, yeah, you know, like hugging each other, high-fiving and everything. And it's kind of sweet to have something that brings strangers together like that, you know?
Yeah. I always think we kind of talked about it before, but like how that connects to the whole philosophy of how parts, you know, can unite to form wholes and groups that have a common goal. And I feel like that's one example in culture where it happens, or I guess subculture with soccer teams. But I honestly think that happens like all throughout nature, where, you know, our own body is just different parts that come together to have a common goal of just keeping the body functioning. And it creates like a sort of larger whole that's bigger than the parts, you know? And I feel like a soccer team is also that, because a soccer team isn't really its players. It's not just its jersey. It's not just, you know, the owner of the team. It's like the collective of all that in the history of the team that sort of comes together to form a bigger whole that's greater than its parts. And I think that happens, you know, all over nature with our own body and everything, man. It's crazy how when you start thinking about it, that it applies in culture and nature. It's amazing.
It's really fascinating, especially what you said of the tradition, you know, how like every sports team kind of has an identity or something they stand for, you know, like of course you have the colors and the association with the colors, but also like some team heritage, you know. Like here in
Yeah.
Germany, there are a lot of very traditional clubs. For example, the one that I supported growing up, like Schalke, they they had their origin because it was just a bunch of miners wanting to get some release off of their work, so they just started playing football, and then like it just grew into this, you know, mega million dollar type of sports franchise, you
Crazy.
know. And it's so interesting too to kind of have that tree sapling of something, you know, like the origin
Yeah.
of that happening, and seeing it expand and grow and take shape and form. And it's so fascinating to observe that everywhere.
It is beautiful, man. Because it like, yeah, I feel like it transcends its past, but at the same time, it couldn't be there without it, you know?
So it never really does, you know, it
Yeah.
still has that seed ingrained.
Yeah.
It's really
Like,
interesting. I wonder sometimes as well, and I wanted to bring this up too, because like, okay, this is like a whole thing, but so it's kind of this idea that the future is contacting us as well as the past is, so that the future kind of determines as well what we do in this very present moment, which is really trippy. But then sometimes it really feels as if that's the case. If things happen that seem to have built up because it was supposed to happen in the future. And I don't know if this makes any sense, but like
I think so, yeah.
synchro
Synchronicities,
yeah,
yeah.
synchronicities is kind of this that same idea, you know. It's
I mean,
so fascinating.
yeah. Terrence McKenna talked about something that I think connects to that. Was he was like public speaker, I guess, and also a very strong advocate for psychedelic experiences and psychedelics in general. You know, he talked about the stoned ape theory and a bunch of things like the DMT elves or whatever. And one of the things he talked about is something he called the transcendental object at the end of time. And he thought there was like something in the future that was somehow pulling everything towards like a common goal. So it's really like the future is driving the past instead of the other way around, where the past creates the future. There's something over there that's like a magnet, you know, like bringing everything towards, I don't know, some, I guess it could be like a greater cosmic harmony where each part contributes to the greater whole, where, I don't know, what you do and what I do is perfectly aligned synchronistically in sort of like actions and behaviors. And it creates, I don't know, greater harmony in terms of the things we're meant to bring forward to humanity. But it's weird. I feel like that would be something that, you know, is kind of like retrocausal, where it's not really the past affecting the future, but the future also affecting the past.
I think maybe it's like a two-way street, because I see both aspects of it, you know,
For
because
sure.
like if we started somewhere and we're going somewhere, you know, but where both of these points really are is very difficult to say. But it's so interesting to imagine that this, like, even in our lives, there are certain cornerstones or experiences that we're supposed to live through. Of course, death, we all have that in common, that at one point in time we will have this experience, which will be crazy. And
We did, yeah.
it sounds very suicidal, but like the experience of death, I'm kind of looking forward to, because it seems
Yeah,
like it's a
same.
once in a lifetime type of
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
you know, literally. Unless you
Yeah,
have like
literally.
a cool,
Unless reincarnation or whatever.
yeah,
Or
yeah,
I guess or ego death when like psychedelics and stuff.
true,
Which I
true.
guess it's not a physical death, but it's still, it feels like you're dying because you leave your body. Or if you ask for project too, because that's kind of like leaving your body.
That's true, but I think all of those are still different than actually kicking the bucket. You know,
Yeah,
actually staying there and seeing that light at the end of the tunnel, as they say,
yeah.
and
Because you
going
can't come back.
through it. No, you're not coming back. Like that experience must be so interesting. Like from a just curious perspective, it's kind of like, man, what happens? And it's
Yeah,
so weird how death is such a taboo topic, you know? Um, but at the same time, I think that's also why it's so important to take in all of the experiences that we can in life, you know?
for
Like
sure.
one of the biggest motivators I have is just, you know, never look back, never look anything, you know, regret anything. Just do it. If you fall, you know, straight down on your face, it's okay. You know, get
Yeah.
back up, and next day, you know, you're gonna get that bolts out of that metal thing in the van. You know,
Yeah.
it's just how it goes.
That is definitely the philosophy to live by, to just have no regrets, because you're trying everything. And I feel like if we see life as a sort of video game where everything is just a sort of challenge that we can get through, but it's meant to be hard, and it's meant to have all these trials and tribulations and side quests with meeting different people as their characters. But it's like the point of it is just to try it and to try all the different experiences. But I think going back to that whole idea of the afterlife and what happens after we die, I honestly think there's a lot of evidence, at least evidence in a certain sense. It's not evidence like scientific evidence where you know observe it through a microscope, but it's experiential evidence where people that have near-death experiences normally describe experiencing the same thing. You know, like you said, the light at the end of the tunnel, feeling like they leave their body and they're floating above it and they recall everything that was going on there. But yet they're not in their physical body. They're in their, what's often called their astral body. And it's crazy how that appears in like so many different cultures throughout the world. And even now, and you know in the past, so it's not something that's, I guess it is affected culturally because people would describe it in terms of the language they have. So people in the past might have said, I don't know, I became a ghost or something, and now we say, oh, I entered my astral body. But yet they're still describing the same experience. And I think that kind of gives evidence to it actually being something that's, genuine. It's not a sort of hallucination. Because when you think about it, that's kind of how we test whether something is actually real or not with what we're perceiving or experiencing. So let's say if right now you hear something in your in your house, like a massive sound, and that scares you, and you want to make sure you're not hallucinating, that there's not a ghost in there or whatever. So you ask me, oh, hey, did you hear that? So, so you're testing whether something is actually true, whether it happened, whether you did perceive it in the world, something objective, by asking someone else if they also experienced it, if they experienced the same thing. So I think when people have the same experience in terms of a near death experience, where, oh, after I was in a car crash, I felt like I left my body and I saw a light, I had a life review or whatever, and then to check whether that's actually something genuine that happened objectively in a sort of, maybe not in this reality, but in somewhere else, you could ask someone else, hey, when you died, when you had a near death experience, what did you experience? What did you see? And then they say, oh, well, I felt like I left my body. I had a life review and then I saw a light. And like, holy shit, man, there's there's something to this, because I think that's one of the key ideas, at least in philosophy, where you try to give evidence towards something. That's a kind of good idea that would, give some reality or some truth to the whole idea that we do have a sort of life after death.
For sure. And it's so crazy, really, and it's underestimated how much language makes a difference here too. Like when you talk about all these cultures, how they speak about these things and they use different words. Of course they use different words, it's a complete different repertoire. And I think it's so interesting, being in a position to be able to speak a couple of languages. You already see it there, where you kind of feel like you're using a different type of spell book for each language that you kind of use. It's really bizarre, but like if I think of something very technical, my mind immediately does it in German, and if I do something philosophically, I do it in English. And like poetry kind of comes in Portuguese or whatever, but like there's a vibe to a language and like completely
Whoa.
different words. Like we just said too, like before this call, you mentioned this, like what fuck means, or like what like a beautiful thing. Like it's kind of in English, it's like, oh, it's fucked, but like it's very positive. It's kind of like an amazement. And how many like different words may there have been in the past to describe an afterlife? Like that in general is a complex kind of sentence with multiple words in order to explain that. And so to translate that of every single language and still kind of come across not just the same afterlife experiences, but also the same mythological stories, like, the flood myth, is insane. Like it's really insane. It can't be a coincidence, in my opinion.
Yeah. And it's crazy how language even is able to do that, how we develop this thing that can represent the world in symbols, and we can really abstract. That's like the only way. I think that's the way that allows us, to humans especially, to actually abstractly think about the world, because we, represent it in a sort of language symbol, and we can really form different meanings from that. Like a word that's just different, I don't know, just it sounds a certain way, but that to us represents something incredibly far out, when it's just, it could be like, I don't know, whatever, like God. Like that's just a sound, but to us it means something in so many different ways to so many different cultures. And like it's crazy how the mind is able to put meaning to that sort of sound, and even the language symbols, and it represents something like incredibly different. You know, that I'm sure that's how we started to even talk or form language when we, I don't know, when we were ancient humans or whatever. We started to try to communicate about the world through, I don't know, making symbols. I'm sure it was probably like art before, you know, someone once, if we were in the ice age or whatever, and we were we were almost hunted by freaking saber-toothed tigers. One way to communicate to someone else other than simply freaking screaming like "ooh, oh," would be like to draw it out, and then you draw it out, and then you make a sound for it. Like you draw out a saber-toothed tiger, and then I tap you on the shoulder and I say Iba.
Yeah, yeah,
Iba.
yeah.
And then we just start saying, yeah, Iba, Iba, and then it just becomes a thing where
And
that sound represents something in the world,
yeah,
which
and
could be a tiger, it could be whatever. Yeah.
and it's so fascinating how so many different cultures have kind of, it boils down to that same root of a word. You know, how you have all
So
these
true. Yeah.
Latin languages, and suddenly you have Latin where, like, you can clearly see in Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, like, you can clearly see that
Dude,
it comes from the same place. And
yeah.
that's so crazy because, like, thinking even further back, like, someone like maybe the Etruscans came up with this word, Iba, or like, you know, whatever. And it just kind of like ended up still being recognizable today in so many
Yeah.
modern languages. It's insane. And
It's crazy.
in that same breath, I also, like, recently I talked about this with my dad because it was also like, I don't know, try to explain something like the subconscious without having a word for it. Like, how crazy is it to come up with concepts, especially philosophically, like the subconscious? Like, now it's like everyone kind of knows what that means and it's well established. And but at one time it was just a theory in some philosopher's head, and he gave it a word, you know,
Yeah.
and that word needed to pick up and to be understood what that word represents. And we are being born into a time where the words that we currently use are kind of pre-rendered, you know, where we have so many different words that we can build upon in order to create new words and new formulations to help us dive further into our consciousness, which is fascinating.
I mean, that example you just gave is a perfect one where it's subconscious, where we piece together something that we already know means something, sub, under, and then conscious, which is, I guess, the mind or consciousness. And it's just you put them together, and that means something completely new, where it's what's below the conscious mind. And
Yeah.
that's like literally what you just said. The magic, it's so, language is incredible how we're able to do that. I feel like, yeah, without it, we'd be, I guess, cavemen, still saying Iba, Iba, and Uba.
Honestly. And then it does bring up the question too, because sometimes it feels like there are moments where telepathy is a real thing, you know, where language isn't needed because out of the moment and the eye contact, it is immediately understood. And I find that really fascinating
Yeah.
as well, because as much as helpful as language is, we also all have individual lenses to each word. So my definition of subconscious probably wouldn't be your
Man, yeah.
definition of subconscious, and your, I guess, association with the word is also going to be very different. So it's also this tool that's really helpful for us to communicate, and yet it's also very easy to miscommunicate. Like, texting is the best
So true.
example, you know? Like, I don't know, some texts, like, you just write in a hurry or whatever, and it's just being like, you know, like the other person perceives like, oh, he must be pissed off or whatever, you
Yeah.
know? Like, it goes into this whole different spectrum because it's not clear as it could
Yeah.
be. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
And I think that gets to, that kind of points that there's different ways of communicating too, not just through, you know, the language symbols, but bodily. That's why, like, when someone, I definitely experienced this, I don't know about you, where it's very hard for me to kind of catch sarcasm through text sometimes, just because you're not there seeing someone's facial expression as they say something, and it's just, you just see the word, but you don't see the other form of communication behind that, which kind of gives more context to what they're saying, which could be their facial expression, the tone of their voice as they say it. And there's like so many subtleties about how we communicate as well. But I don't know, what in terms of the subconscious, what have you researched about that? Because I've barely touched on that, so I definitely want to learn more.
Oh
I
man,
don't know if you have.
subconscious. I read Jung.
Oh, Young.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's some of the most fascinating reads. Man and His Symbols. Like that really goes into how, like what we talked about, you know, how the symbol is just so old and how it's still carrying on so much value. The book talks a lot about dream interpretation as well, which is fascinating because dreams arise from our subconsciousness and even the subconsciousness of the collective, which is also what he really talks about, that there's not just the own individual's subconscious, but also the collective. What also kind of goes into this idea that we just said, that you know, we kind of have these words build up with a sort of a meaning, which like collectively we consciously have, or for some subconsciously agreed upon using these words, and that they mean what they mean in a way.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to also see how he interprets that in dreams, you know, like easy example. If there's a cross, you know, of course there comes religion to mind, Christianity, and what that represents. And then he also always analyzes, okay, what's the environment like, you know, the parents, the way the child grew up. And it's so fascinating to kind of piece that together, to try to see what your subconscious is trying to tell you in dreams or in subtle reactions to things. It's really fascinating, especially in communication. Since you mentioned that, there's also one example I had, like with a friend. Like I never met him before. This was the first night we met, and we immediately, like, we talked, and it was an immediate hit. And we just walked, and like multiple times, like our arms touched, and it was like an electrication, you know, like if you
Like
like, get a
the
shock.
zap. Yeah, the
Yeah,
shock.
yeah. And that was so bizarre. And of course, you know,
That's
as with anything, you can come up with some scientific explanation, from the fabric of her shoes to, you know, the
yeah.
atmosphere that was around in that evening. Nonetheless, it's so interesting to acknowledge those experiences as well, that maybe are also
Yeah.
caused from the subconscious, you know?
Yeah. Or like aligning energetically somehow or something like that. And how does he see the subconscious? Is it like or the collective one? Is it like you know, the idea of like a collective consciousness where we kind of have like a group mind somehow? Or is it more like telepathy where because we have this ability where, you know, I think at least that our thoughts can transfer between our minds. Would that be kind of how the subconscious actually manifests? Because when people dream or when people think, the thoughts of others, you know, gets, I don't know, transferred around. Or does he give a sort of explanation for how he thinks that
I would say,
works?
I mean, not that I can exactly recall right now.
Haciendo un podcast.
¿Puedo usar tu teléfono? Porque estoy arreglando con el que
Ok.
disculpamos.
¿Te llevas al perrito?
Sí. Quiere salir en el podcast.
Nuke.
There's the nuke.
Yeah.
Ok, me lo llevo.
Okay, bye. God,
Look at
I
that.
love
You must have,
animals.
yeah. And you must have thought of the dog and your mother right there, you know?
Yeah.
It's like appeared.
Yeah.
To pick up the thought, I think Jung, from what I recall, I'm sure he mentions it somewhere. I don't want to also just say something that, you know, it's like half-ass fact. So I would just say he, or at least how I would see it, is kind of like a living organism, you know, that kind of how we said it with soccer teams, how there's an origin for it, and it's just keeps on branching out. So it's very much alive. I think it's crazy to kind of imagine like a collective subconscious just breathing, connecting every single human with one another, you know, zapping thoughts around. But I just kind of think that's how it works, similar to the brain and the mind. Like
that resonates for me for sure. I think like if it has its own sort of, it's also its own mind apart from ours, like a soccer team where I could like it or whatever, like how I was saying before, that certain parts can form to create a bigger whole, and the whole is sort of above its parts and it's different, just like our body. If our, you know, cells have their own tiny little minds and their own autonomy or agency that makes them come together to create this body. And yet somehow we feel like we're separate from it because we're like the whole above all the parts that is transcends it, but at the same time it's so intimately connected to it. So what if the subconscious is like that? Like, because the subconscious is made of parts in terms of our minds. We are, you are a part, your subconscious mind is a part, my subconscious mind is a part. But if it's a collective subconscious, it's what if all those parts also come together to create a mind that's above its parts. So it is like an entity almost, like you said, like a living entity that can do things or whatever.
Yeah, that's a really trippy thought. And also in terms of this conversation, and also now that we're 30 minutes in, welcome to this conversation to everyone listening. It's also in this example, like every one of us right now, like us two talking, as well as the audience, are kind of connecting and reaching that symbiosis of being exactly right here in this very moment. And that's really trippy to think about. Also, you know, like it's also a weird thought, but would we create this podcast if no one would watch it? So it's one of those things where like I guess we could, because it's not guaranteed that anyone is watching this. And yet with this whole idea of the past and the future kind of pulling on each other, then as with anything, I'm sure there's also a reason behind us sitting here and you guys listening to this in this very moment.
For sure. I think that whole idea of the you know, the transcendental object at the end of time pulling all of us towards a sort of common goal, this could be just a part within that greater cosmic goal that, you know, contributes to some, whatever the goal is, the cosmic goal at the end is, if there is one. And yeah, it's beautiful that we can all come together to form this, and this is going to influence other things as well.
Exactly. I'm very curious because, like you mentioned it, like when we started this call, took about an hour to set up so that we're ready to record. By the way, but you mentioned that you had like a synchronicity happening in terms of, yeah. Tell it. I'm curious.
Yeah, sure, yeah. I mean, well, you tell me first about the story you told me with your dad, so then people understand the context, and then I'll give you mine. Because you told me about how you were in Germany with your dad and you visited the place that he used to live in, and he, you know, all that. Because my synchronicity connects to that, but we need that context first.
All right,
for sure.
So for context, I was born in the south of Germany and I moved away when I was 1 year old. So I have no recollection of this town. And my dad, you know, he grew up there. He spent like 25 years living there. And for some reason, yesterday was the first day in my entire life I actually been in that city, you know, and I was walking around with him and he had goosebumps, you know, he's like walking around like, oh my God, I can't remember. I used to live here. And he shared so many stories of, you know, where he was. And I find that fascinating as well, you know, how that time and space thing, like it brings you back. It really does. Yeah. So now I'm curious.
That's the synchronicity, dude. The same exact thing happened with me and my dad a day after you told me that.
Nah, bro. What?
Because right now I'm living in Merida, which is in the Yucatan Peninsula, kind of close to Cancun. And I'm originally from Mexico City. That's where I was born. And I moved to the US after that. But my dad, when he was very young, he used to live here right now where I am in Merida. I think when he was 3, from like 3 to 5 years old. And so the day after you told me that story, he randomly just said, "Oh, look, we're close to where I used to live. You want to go check it out?" So, and then he was just telling me the places he'd been around in, you know, that store, the little park. And then we actually found his very old house, even though it took a while because it was all, you know, remodeled and everything. But I just thought it was so bizarre that you mentioned that thing, and then a day after it sort of synchronistically happens to me,
That's
which is, it's
crazy.
weird. I always wonder how it works, whether it's, you know, our own mind. That's kind of like you mentioned Carl Jung. He also looked into synchronicities. He has a book actually called Synchronicity, I'm pretty sure. And his idea behind it is that the psyche can actually, you know, manipulate reality, and it's much more powerful. It can, you know, influence space and time and the structure of things. So when you start thinking something, it sort of, you know, manifests, and it shows you that in the physical world. I'm pretty sure that's what he said. I don't want to, I don't want to like fudge up with he said something different, but I think that's one of his ideas. So I wonder if that's what causes it, you know, if it's just that our mind is so powerful that when we start thinking something, it sort of manifests, or if it's something more like it's a way for something outside of us, so whether it be God or the universe, whatever you want to call it, or angels, or I don't know, aliens, something else that's kind of ordaining things. Or maybe it's like the cosmic harmony, like we said, where everything is just kind of moving towards some goal, and each part is kind of harmoniously aligned to every other one. So it shows you when you're on the right path and when you're aligned to that with things like that. So for let's say that was a sign that, you know, I'm meant to be doing this podcast with you, and you're a good energy, good vibe, and that we both are aligned energetically. And then something else that just happened to me that I think is an example of that is the same friend of my mom's that came from Peru. She started telling me that she joined some Discord community to learn about something that she wanted to learn about, just randomly, because we started talking about different things. And like right, like a week before that, or that week, I actually started building my own Discord community with someone that's helping me out and trying to, you know, give that to people. And it's just weird how it's like little nuggets from the universe that tells you, oh yeah, you're in the right path, you're on the right path, you're doing the right thing. If
Yeah.
that could be, I mean, that's like two different ways of explaining it, and I don't know which one is the correct one. Could be both, honestly.
It could be both and none of them. That's the
Yeah,
great
or
thing
none of them.
about life, you know.
Or none of them. Yeah.
It's crazy, but I feel that, and it's interesting because like one thing that kind of really reminds me of this conversation is, you know, last summer I was living on a farm in Portugal with a bunch of other people that didn't believe in coincidence, you know, and that believe that thoughts have power. And I found what happened so fascinating, because what happens individually, like what you described, is happening as a collective. So what we did, and that was really bizarre, what we did was we sat around a morning circle, you know, and we're like, you know, this is like an abandoned farm, there's nothing on there, you know, we needed a lot of things. And then like one dude just goes like, I think we need another couch, you know. And everyone's like, yeah, let's manifest a couch. So let's all think of a couch, you know, what does it look like, you know, whatever. We talk about couches, right?
Yeah.
We sit in a car, we drive like 200 meters, just in middle of nowhere, there's a couch.
What the fuck?
Middle of nowhere.
That's so bizarre.
It's so bizarre, and it happened daily. I can't recall, like, it was so bizarre how quickly the things manifested, or you know, synchronicities happened. And I feel like it was also largely due to the big group that we were, that all kind of believed that it is possible. And
Yeah.
I find that very interesting. Like whenever I'm with like a group of people that are like, let's say atheist, you know, or agnostic, or rather like, okay, I don't,
Skeptical about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
scientific, whatever you want to call it, and it's all fine. Like, please do as you please. Yet then I think the synchronicities, if they appear, you're the only one that catches them, or like others don't find it
See
as
them.
weird as you
Yeah.
do in the moment, And I find that fascinating when that group dynamic changes, how everything just seems to come faster and it's also appreciated. I remember like when we saw that couch, everyone was like, "Oh man, look, we made it happen, man." It's real. So
Did you try to manifest other things after that? Where you're
of
like,
course.
all right, boys, let's fucking think about $30,000. It's just gonna appear, and then collectively.
Well, we did have other really weird things happening. We did say for a while, because it felt like we were like spiritual pirates in a way, because we were just like snagging couches everywhere. But like, so we just kind of had that running gag of like, oh yeah, we're pirates, whatever. And we found a pirate ship in a river, just like a
What?
small one, but it had like a pirate flag on it, and it was just awesome. Like, what the? It was
It's weird
really weird, yeah.
because it's like what you think about. It's both things. What you think about or intend sort of appears in front of you, but also it's like showing you that I don't know where any other thing that you have experienced. Did you feel like it was the other thing that I sort of talked about, where it's more something that's showing you that you're on the right path rather than a sort of experience where, like we said, it's like the belief of something actually makes it appear or the thought of it?
Yeah, for sure. I have it both ways. Like even yesterday after we posted the Ollantay Tambo video, I went on a run because like I was so excited, and I'm so excited to go to Peru and experience it
Same,
all.
bro.
And so I went on a run. It was like sunset, and it was really weird. So like I was jogging down the street. There was a gas station, and all the gas station prices were, I guess, turned off, but it said 1111 2222 33333, just like
No
that.
way.
There's like
Yeah.
there's a rainbow in the back of the street, just
Oh,
like
dude.
going over a church, and I'm just like, what, that felt like, okay, this is good. It's good the way
Yeah.
it is, and on the right path.
That's such a beautiful synchronicity. It's like a rainbow and the angel numbers.
Yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
take a picture of that and
I
like
did.
where
I
they
did
both
take a
appeared?
picture. I'll put it in the
You put it?
podcast. I'll put
Yeah.
it in the podcast as proof, because that shit
That's
was
sick,
crazy.
dude. It's crazy. And it's crazy that like we said too, where when people don't really believe that that's possible, they don't really experience the synchronicities. It's only when they like start really kind of believing that it can happen that they start manifesting. I think there's a quote which kind of really sums it up, which is the more you believe in us, the more power we have. So that could be in terms of synchronicities or I don't know, angels, or I mean, because that could be an explanation for what they are. If they are signs from some other realm that try to show you that you're on the right path. But who knows? It's so hard to really, be able to figure out what it actually is. That's the one thing I'm always wondering about. I want to see like behind the curtain, behind the veil, to understand, what's the mechanism, which is, I guess, it's kind of like trying to be too scientific, but at the same time, I don't know. I think it'd be cool. I just want to understand.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I think there's always going to be that veil of mystery, but just like, like you just gotta like inch closer to it, with
Yeah,
something, and it's so fascinating to do that. And I think it's kind of the path that we're both on, I guess, too, to try and see more and lead that curiosity to, have childlike wonder for things, but also have
for
the
sure.
inquiry to actually ask about these things and go talk about it. I think when it comes to the group thing, another thing that came to me is kind of, if everyone believes in it, everyone is more so aware that this is a possibility. So I think just probability wise, if you're in a group of 7 people, one of them is going to catch something that is then also going to be recognized by the other ones, right? So of course with a couch it's pretty obvious, but still there needed to be someone to say, oh, that's a couch, you know, when everyone else like, oh yeah, that's a couch, and like it became meaningful.
You agree? Yeah.
You know, it becomes more likely for these events to happen if there are more eyes trying to see in the environment. Because how many obvious signs do we miss that we have no idea that we missed because it's just us, you know?
Yeah. And it's crazy. I think I had another example, I guess going back to even dreams as well. I don't know, have you heard of precognitive dreams before? Where it's we kind of I don't know if we talked about it.
I think you
Am I maybe-
mentioned the word, but please go into it. I just like hearing you talk about dreams. Go forward.
Well, the word itself traces back. If we talked about it kind of like etymology and the history of words and trying to break down the root meaning. I think comes from Latin cognito, and then pre, which means before, and cognito, which means to have knowledge of. So it's kind of like, it literally etymologically means prior knowledge or foreknowledge, or to have knowledge before something happens. So it's precognition is that ability. It's like a psychic ability usually, and precognitive dreams is just that same ability but in dreams, where you can have dreams that sort of seem to predict the future. And it's weird that I started getting into it, and I wrote a script about it for a video, because the same woman that came, that's my mom's friend from Peru, she told me about her precognitive dreams that she's been having ever since she was pretty young. And it was crazy. I mean, the things she was describing was insane. Like she recalled a lot of symbolic dreams where, a certain symbol that her mom, which is also, she also had precognitive dreams, showed her how to interpret as a sort of sign from the future. And then when she knew that, she could actually tell that something was going to come to pass, and it actually did. But there was something that was even more incredible, which is where she literally experienced what she was going to experience in the future, almost exactly as it happened in the future, but in her dream. So one example was, I think the night of the Japan tsunami. I think it was in 20. I'm not sure what year it was, but it was pretty big. She had it's not really a precognitive dream. It's called a premonition, which is a precognitive dream of something bad that's going to happen. So I don't know if you may have seen Star Wars.
Oh
With
yeah, of course.
Anakin
Of course.
and the nightmare he had about Padme dying.
Mhm.
They called that a premonition, because that's the name for it. It's a precognition, but for something bad. But that's kind of sidetracking. Anyways, she she told me that she dreamt that she was there with the tsunami, and she saw a bunch of people screaming and water flowing, and it was brown, and there was pipes in there and a bunch of trash, and she just ran on top of a very high place to get away from it, but she could see it all unfold, with the people screaming for help and all that. And then she just randomly awoke after that. She felt pretty scared because it was pretty vivid, and she could kind of tell, like, intuitively, that that was something that was going to happen. And she said she told her grandfather, which was not her grandfather, her father, which was there, like, oh, I just had this dream. I know there's this tsunami is going to happen in some part of the world, but I don't know where. And a bunch of people are screaming for help. And this is like, I'm so traumatized by this, because she like witnessed it as if she was there in the dream, which is bizarre that that can even happen. And then I think she said like she couldn't go to fall asleep, so she turned on the TV, and like an hour or so after, she saw on the news on the TV that there was a tsunami in Japan, and in the scene that she was seeing on the news was exactly what she saw in her dream, where she was witnessing it, with the people screaming and the water with the pipes like that. And it's like she had that sort of precognitive dream, which is even that's like I think the most powerful precognitive dream, because it's not symbolic. It's not like if you have a dream of, I don't know, she described one where if you dream of very ripe fruit, it usually means someone's going to become pregnant. And from the dream she had, when she dreams that, she gave me one example of her sister or something became pregnant. I forget, but I feel like it's so much more powerful when you literally experience it detailed, like as precisely as it actually unfolded in the future. And I started doing research into it because I wanted to, uncover more about it. And it's a phenomenon that's been described all throughout history, like with shamanic cultures and indigenous tribes, shamans and medicine men, and witch doctors all describe having precognitive dreams and being able to interpret the dreams of others. And even in different religions like Judaism, in Genesis, I forget what his name is. I think it's called, his name was Joseph. He's some, biblical figure that also has precognitive dreams, and he, can predict the future with his dreams. And yeah, there's so many different examples, even in history. I think Mark Twain had one, where
Damn, shout out Mark.
yeah, where I think it was his brother died, but he had a dream like exactly like the girl from Peru, where he dreamt it at precisely like detail for detail, where I think in the dream his brother had died in a boat accident because his brother was so he worked on a boat or something. And then in the dream he saw his brother like laid out on a table with a white rose on his chest, and he just pictured that. And I remember, I think in the journal where he wrote it down, it says he'd like awoke from it, and he sort of got dressed, and he wanted to like go pay amends. I think that's the word,
Yeah,
to his brother, because he thought it actually happened. But then he realized, oh no, that was just a dream. But it just felt so vivid in the moment. And then I think it was the day afterward or a week afterward, he got a call or something about his brother dying, and then he went to the place, and where there he saw his brother laid out on a table, but he didn't see the rose. And then a couple minutes after, while he was there, a lady came in with a bouquet of flowers, and she laid a rose on his chest, a white rose. And then he just saw it there exactly as it happened in his dream. And
then Mark Twain
supposedly
must have been in that office like, "Fuck." It's like,
like, holy shit, dude.
yeah.
I can't imagine if that happens to you, because it's so much crazier than a deja vu.
Yeah,
Because a deja vu is like, oh, I feel like I've been here before and I've experienced it. But this is like, I literally saw this at detail for detail. And I mean, it's crazy because I think it's, from the research I did, it's supposed to be more common than we think. Like a lot of people also experience it, but it's sort of, they don't even know. Like sometimes it could be like a symbolic dream and you don't know how to interpret that, but it's still precognitive. It's nuts.
I had dreams like that, but they were just really whack in comparison to what like I had a dream where I was like barefoot walking through like a I don't know, like a landscape by the sea. And I didn't recognize it at all, but like I was rushing to get through this to this train station, and there I grabbed a sandwich, and I just remember I didn't want to have meat on there, but I grabbed that one like with meat by accident, and I was like, oh no, like, oh shit, now I have the one with meat. The next day I wake up, and at that time I was living close to a beach, and I walked down, and the sea went all the way back, and it looked exactly like how it was in the dream, like with like these rugged coastlines and like the green sea moss everywhere, and I walked over it barefoot to like live after the dream. I was like, haha, that's funny. And then I go to this I went to Sintra, and like I walked to this restaurant, and it was like a medieval restaurant, which also very much fit the vibe. But that's besides the point. I ordered a sandwich, And in the moment I say it, I realized, oh no, that's a meat sandwich, and I didn't want one. So then I was also like, wait a second, like
Hold up. Hold up.
I dreamt about this.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Am I
Did you-
dreaming? Yeah, dude, that's also described too, that people have like the most random precognitive dreams of like eating a sandwich, a meatball sandwich or whatever, or like taking a shower and I don't know, falling or watching some Netflix show, and they have a precognitive dream of that,
Yeah,
which
it's
is
crazy.
it's weird. Like, why would you even have that?
Yeah. Did you ever have one?
I don't think I have, and if I do, I just don't remember because my dreams are normally pretty bizarre. Like they're not something that's you know, that's seems like real life. It's like me flying or me having the super jump or, you know, stuff like that. But as of yet, I haven't. No.
It's funny that you say that with the flying thing. I had a really weird moment while driving the other day, because I don't know how we talked about this. Like I was in a car and I was talking to a friend, and she said like, "Oh, you know, I always dream of flying." And in that moment, I was kind of like brought back as if I could fly. I don't know how to explain it, but I was driving the car, and suddenly my mind was like, I had that dream too, but like in a really like I felt it in my whole body, you know, and had this like memory vision come up of like me flying in a dream, but it felt weirdly
Surreal.
real. Yeah. And it was like it lasted for like 10 seconds or so, and I was just looking at her like,
Oh.
did I just fly? I don't know. I don't know what that was. I was somewhere else.
I lucky feel that they're like astral projections. I've always had that hypothesis where I think we actually, whenever we dream, or at least some dreams, are just you leaving your body and, you know, going out in the world and doing all this other stuff because you feel like you fly like in an astral projection.
Mm.
And I don't know, Dolores Cannon, which she's a hypnotherapist, that also does past life regression through hypnotherapy. So she like puts people under hypnosis and tries to access their subconscious memories of their past lives, supposedly. And she said about something about whenever you go to sleep, you leave your body and you go into the astral or something. Which is something that I think she uncovered through her past life regression sessions, which is weird because a bunch of people, when she does her hypnosis sessions, she gets a lot of weird knowledge on a bunch of weird topics. It could be the subconscious, it could be dreams, could be the nature of reality or God, this what she calls the source. It's bizarre, man. There's so many weird things out there.
It is. It is. I had regressions done to me before with a shaman, and those experiences were also nuts, you know. The last one, that's also a great example with the group synchronicity. So we did a cacao ceremony. It's kind of like a tradition now that we do a cacao ceremony with like hometown friends, because you know, my best friend's mom is a shaman, so she invites
Oh,
us
that's
to
sick.
go to like do a cacao ceremony like as a friend group, and it's like it's hometown friends, you know. So like I'm kind of like the only weird esoteric dude out there, you know. And the other ones are kind of just like, you know, they're doing regular jobs, but they're curious, you know. And it's a really wholesome setting. And then after we had the ceremony, she went on like a shamanic journey with us, you know. And she showed me like, you know, this was supposed to bring out what 2024 is going to be like for us. And I had this vision that I flew to this island with a huge volcano. And in the moment, it reminded me of the Azores, right? But it was like a huge volcanic island, and I landed there. I go inside of this volcano, and there's a huge white dragon, you know, in like an alchemical lab. And I pick up a sword, and the dragon looks at me like, "Yes, kill me." So it was like it was a crazy scene where then I slay this dragon, and it felt like the dragon wanted to be slain. So like it was wise enough to know that that is what needs to happen, which I found fascinating.
Yeah.
I immediately wanted to get that done as a tattoo, and maybe that will still happen. But then 6 days after that, on my birthday, right, we go to this mountainous retreat or whatever. And so it's in the middle of nowhere in Germany, and also like a very mystical region, like a lot of witch stories and stuff. The Harz, for everyone that knows.
Oh.
And so we're there, and then suddenly there's this dude. He wears a black hoodie with a white dragon on it. Like exactly how I saw it.
Yeah.
And then he comes and like we talk a little bit, and he says, "Oh, I'm from Osnabrück, which is the city that I moved to the day like before." He was like, he was from that place I just moved to, which is really weird. And then
That's so bizarre.
and then he was he was smoking a cigarette, and one of my friend goes like, "Oh man, and see, he also wants to be killed." you know what's to be done. So, but I also found that such a crazy synchronicity, and I was shocked, and all my friends were like laughing about it, but none of them were like, "Oh yeah, this is like, this means something," or whatever. They're like, "Ah, this."
Were you the only one?
Well,
They thought it was like, oh,
the
this
other
guy's
ones
on some
acknowledged
shit.
it. Yeah, I mean, for sure, but they know that about me now. So it's kind of like, okay,
Yeah.
I see from Philip's twisted lens, I see how this relates in that sense,
That's bizarre that they would do the shamanic like ritual with you then if they're like skeptical.
Well, I think, still curious, and it's a very communicative, nice thing. Like, and I don't think you need to believe in God in order to, experience such things, or need to believe it works. Because at the end of the day, you drink cacao, sit together with friends, and you close your eyes and meditate, like.
Yeah.
But it's really amazing that they do this, and it's so sweet to, to get together like that and have this tradition that we've been doing for 2 years in a row. So I've been hoping it continues. But
have you always experienced something like that, like a weird sort of synchronicity and a vision whenever you do it?
I think the last time, like the first time we did it, I can't really recall. I think we also went on a shamanic journey that time, but I don't remember it. Maybe it was just to be in the year 2023 and not for this year. I guess maybe that's why I can't recall it. Well, one thing, but like one thing that's like I'd love to talk about is the whole Peru thing. Like
yeah.
we've been
Yep. Yeah, we should probably get to that.
Yeah,
It's only been 45 minutes.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just like, well, the one reason, like, or not one reason, of course, but like one of the reasons why life brought us together to do this podcast is also to talk a little bit more about the Peru thing, and also just get some of our thoughts out. And man, it's such a pleasure to be hosting this retreat with you in November, and gonna meet so many of you hopefully there as well, and explore ancient Incan sites. It sounds like a fever dream right now, honestly.
It's gonna be so fun, man. I feel like it gives me the vibes of like in high school going to like a camp or something where you're just with your buddies around the campfire, you're telling stories and you're meeting new people. There's that, the romance of someone, there's the girl you like and your boys are telling you to go talk to her. It gives me that sort of vibe,
Okay.
But it's gonna be like so fun. I feel like.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I definitely want to climb a lot of trees. Hopefully there'd be some nice ones we can climb. And I mean, you did bouldering, so maybe we can do that collectively. And the people that join us, hey, you can climb some trees with us too.
Yeah, for sure.
We're
And
just
you hear, hear
we're
from
just gonna
that, it's gonna
tap
be an
into.
adventure.
Yeah, I feel like we're just gonna be able to tap into that childlike sort of state where we're just having fun and enjoying our time, and also diving into all the mysteries there as well.
Oh, I'm
seeing
so excited for that.
Yeah. Because I went to Peru once when I was little, but I only went to Machu Picchu, and I don't really remember it that well. And I didn't have that perspective of, the far out theories about it being sort of built by some advanced ancient civilization. So yeah, it would be cool to see it with that perspective
Oh, for
for
sure.
sure.
For sure. And like even the site we just made a video about, Ollantay Tambo, it seems so amazing. And it's just one of
Yeah.
many sites that we're going to see, and all of them like a bit more low key as well, you know, not the most touristic spots, but this is rather handpicked to really dive deep into the mystery and meeting an indigenous community as well. I'm
Oh, that's gonna be
so
so amazing.
excited for that.
Yeah.
So excited for that. You know,
Do you
seeing
have
how
like
they
an
live.
interview that you want to ask them? I don't know, for like your documentaries and stuff. I feel like
Oh,
that'd be so cool.
that would be really, really cool. There was, I guess, a synchronicity about this was, I mean, I don't know if I'll do this or not, but I have a friend who's like, he studied script writing in Berlin, and he messaged me the other day because he's currently on doing like a hitchhike adventure, which is also crazy. Wanted to join that
Sick.
too, but sadly couldn't make it this year. Anyways, he reached out to me being like, hey, do you want to work on something? And I don't know if I should say, it's probably confidential, but like I'll say it anyways because it fits to the point. But his idea was to kind of like talk to indigenous communities and kind of see how they feel about climate change from a spiritual perspective, you know.
That would be such a good interview. That's it, like one of the things I was thinking about. I got so
No
excited,
way.
dude. I
No
was
way.
thinking not necessarily climate change, but just in general, like their views about Mother Nature and the earth
Yeah,
as a whole,
yeah,
and how they view their relationship to it. And
for
yeah,
sure.
and that question too, which is critical, like what's going on now and
Mm.
what should we do about it from their
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah, for sure. I think the indigenous knowledge in that is way greater than science gives them credit, you know.
For sure.
They're just tapped into a different source. So I'd be so down to ask some questions. I don't know if they speak English. I think maybe you have a better shot with your Spanish.
Yeah,
We'll make it
if
work.
we can do like a collective interview script, and anyone that wants to, pose their own questions as well while we're there, that joins us on the retreat, we can also ask them. But
For
dude,
sure.
I honestly think, like what you said, I think their knowledge it's kind of like they knew what science later proved through experiments about, in science, there's a field called ecology, which is the study of the relationships between living organisms and the environment. And indigenous cultures throughout all history have always understood that in their own ways, by observing nature. Just how everything is just an interdependent web of connections, a web of life, where every organism depends on every other one, and every organism also depends on their surrounding environment. And when you cut one web in the web of life, all the other ones are affected. And we know that happens now through, like, there's some very cool documentaries on Netflix about, I think it's called The Living World. You guys should definitely watch that if you haven't, on Netflix, a docu-series. And it shows that, like, very concrete examples of how like the web is so interconnected, and when you affect one thing, it affects the entire system or the whole web. So, and I think getting to that knowledge and understanding that is the way that we're actually going to be able to save the earth, because all we have to do is let the earth take care of itself by trying to bring back the biodiversity of, bringing back all the little pieces in the web so the web can become self-sustaining. So, bringing back the population of elephants so they can contribute to part of the web, which helps another population of organisms even halfway across the world, which they show in that documentary. I can't remember the example, but it was so amazing. And that's all we have to do, at least from what I've kind of understood: increase the biodiversity of plants and animals so the web itself can become reconstructed, and then everything else, just the harmony and the balance of the living system that is the earth, follows after that, once we take care of that. But I really want to, like, ask questions about that to the indigenous communities, because I think they understood that. Because I mean, the Native Americans have the whole we kind of talked about that in one of the videos when we did the video of the
I was
symbol.
about to say that, bro, because like you keep mentioning the web, and I was like, man, how crazy is it that like the first collab video we ever did was about the web of interconnectedness, you know? And you just keep speaking about it. I'm just like,
yep.
yeah.
It's bizarre, dude. That I love that symbol. And just recently, this past week, I went on to visit a bunch of different cenotes, which are like underwater sinkholes that were made when the asteroid hit the Yucatan Peninsula in that part of Mexico. You know, they formed like massive caverns and massive holes that got filled with fresh water, and they're very beautiful. But there, I saw someone with the tattoo I want, which is the Buddhist knot, the infinite knot, and I felt so bad because I told him, like, dude, I love your tattoo. That's such a sick tattoo. And he was like, yeah, I like the design. But the dude had no idea that he was literally carrying a religious symbol on his fucking shoulder, and he had no idea.
Oh, that's tough.
And the meaning behind it too. He didn't know it, I'm sure, because he just
crazy though.
Yeah, like how it's like it's such a common tattoo that no one even knows that it has a very deep meaning.
Yeah, but that's tough. Like I you know, like even when I wasn't so like in touch with my spiritual side, so to speak, you know, I was a big fan of American football growing up because I played it here in Germany. And every time, you know, you see someone like in the hipster merch of like the Oakland Raiders or something, you know, and you just go, hey man, that's a cool team, you know, like what do you like about them, you know? And they're just like, I don't know.
My brother gave this to me.
I like the design.
I like the shirt, yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that either. But like with tattoos, especially, like I think
dude,
that's more permanent, bro. Like I get a shirt, but like, but I don't know. Can I explain every symbol of my tattoos? You know,
I want to see your tattoos, dude, because I've never. Like,
I don't know.
I've seen them and they look sick, but I don't think you ever explained the ones you have.
Yeah, but like that's
you
also
got a revolver.
into. Yeah,
that's so sick.
A gun with a rose, you know, because it's important to just be, you know, show love rather than war. And a bunch of different handwritings of people close to me, like my sister, my mom, my dad, my best friend, and the Eye of Horus, of course.
Hey,
see it. I love it. Yeah. But you got one too, right? You got like
I got the Seed of Life progression from
you just like the design.
Yeah, I just like the design. I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
I don't even know what it means. Nah, I got it because I was really into sacred geometry before, and I really resonated with that whole idea that, you know, it's like supposed to be this esoteric meaning of the 7 days of creation in Genesis. Where instead of actually it being literal, like, oh, day 1 create the void, it's the void or whatever, and then day 2 it's the night and the day, and day 3 is the whatever, the stars. It's supposed to be at least according to this whole idea that it's esoterically sacred geometry. There's just I'm pretty sure this is 7 circles, where in the beginning there was just supposedly the one creator, the one collective singular consciousness, which is represented by the little dot in the beginning. And then the dot kind of forms a circle around it. So there's a dot and it forms like a circle around it. And that represents that consciousness becoming self-aware, realizing I exist. And then from there, at least from how I kind of understand it, it started the process of creation, because it started from recognizing itself that it is alone and it wants to create more from itself and different expressions of itself. So every other circle after that represents, like it says in the story, the sky, different animals, the stars, the planets, or whatever. So it's like every circle is just a different expression of that same singular consciousness that became self-aware in the beginning of everything and just decided I exist, but then what can I actually become? What can I express myself as? So it's kind of symbol that represents to me that we're all the same thing. We're all the one expressing itself as many.
Yeah,
But it
man,
also
it's
connects to the idea in Genesis, supposedly, which I'm not sure. I think I like the idea. I've kind of like lost a bit of the conviction in it, just because I don't think I'm being too biased, and I think I'm not sure if the Genesis story actually represents it, but I still think this is like a great way to represent the whole idea that we're all one thing that became many.
yeah, it's the same thing talking to each other right now, and it's the same ears that it hits, you know.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
fascinating thought because it really feels like that too. It's also interesting, like you mentioned that in the very beginning of this, like this whole idea of we ask others if they perceive something as well in order to check if that really happened.
yeah.
But at the same time, can we really sure that anything exists except for us? You know, like
Dude,
that.
that's the number one of the biggest problems in philosophy of
Yeah,
mind.
yeah.
It's
I
called the
think,
problem
therefore I
of other
am.
minds. Yeah,
Yeah, like
it's like
Rene
because you
Descartes.
can't. Yeah, because you can't ever know something other than your own mind, really. Because all we ever experience is our own perceptions, technically.
Yeah,
In terms of
exactly.
even how you see how the brain actually perceives sensory input from the world, you're just experiencing I don't know what your brain because you get sensory signals, so it could be light that comes and hits your retina, and then that gets it's called like transduced, which is like it's converted into another form of energy, another form of something, into electrical activity that the brain sort of I guess pieces together based on its prior experiences as well. Uh, about what that signal could be. So it's like trying to make sense of what's actually out there. But it like supposedly this is one idea in neuroscience because there's many different interpretations of it that we're like kind of this perception is like a hallucination that we construct every time our brain constructs the way we perceive everything. So we also usually see things that sometimes are not there, and because our brain expects to see that. So if we see like a face in the clouds, it's because our own prior experiences have conditioned us to be able to see faces and expect to see that in the world. Or yeah, I mean many different other examples.
But
For,
that's an
mhm.
interesting one though, because like even with that, like I heard that before too, to like that we see past things that don't really exist, like the whole Rorschach test, right? Like
Yeah,
the
the
images that kind
Rorschach
of,
plot. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. It's kind of like goes into like a similar thing, and it's interesting, of course, how we always try to see things or make forms or perceive things differently. I remember when that blue, black slash white gold dress went viral, you
yep.
know, that was
That's
also
another
bizarre.
example. Yeah,
And even an audio one, like audio ones, there are also a bunch of different ones where like you hear one thing and then you read the other thing, then you hear that and not the other one.
yeah,
Really
yep.
trippy. And how we use these senses though to say what
What
reality
exists?
is,
Yeah,
like we have no idea. Like we're,
we
we're
don't know.
really just blind space monkeys kind of just trying to go through this experience, you know. And it's so bizarre too how we have all of these kind of negative things in the air then, you know, like stuff
Mhm.
like war and shit like that, because it seems so unnecessary, you know, because
Yeah.
what are we like, even I love when just people come up like in random questions, like at boulder gyms, right? That's where the example came from. There was a woman at a counter and she just looks at me and she goes, "So who are you?" And I'm just like, "Fresh, chill." Yeah.
Hold up,
Yeah.
hold up, Jimmy.
Yeah. I mean, what am I supposed to
You
say?
wanna?
Yeah. My
I
name.
am
Yeah.
that I am.
Yeah. It's man, life is so filled with wonders if we have
Yeah,
the
I
eyes to
love it
see them. Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, it's so amazing how there's a lot of people that never lose sight of that. You know, where they still see a sense of mystery in the world, because I think that really fades away for a lot of people when they start growing up. Because when you're a child, when you think about it, you just get you appear here in this world and you just exist, and then you see all this stuff that you never experienced before, and everything is such a mystery because you don't know what it is. So you're like, see a bird and you're like, wow, what is that? And then but then I feel like you lose that sense of mystery when someone gives you the names of things, because you think you actually understand what it is, but you don't. It's just the name.
Yeah.
So a bird or a tree loses its sort of majestic wonder and awe, and just looking at it, it's just so amazing. And then it's because it's just in the way that it is, and it can be mysterious as well with different animals. And then when you ask your parents, like, oh, what is that? And they say, oh, that's a dog, that's a bird.
Yeah.
And oh, okay, bird. And that gives you a false sense of confidence that you already understood it, and the mystery fades and you lose that sense of wonder and curiosity. But I don't know, I think something in us, I definitely think I lost it for a bit, but I regained it after I just became more curious about other topics, like when I started getting into spirituality.
Same thing for me. Like, it's like a second, it's fitting, and as cliche as it is to call it awakening, you know, in this kind of example, it fits to it because it was kind of like a second childlike state where, you know,
For
I was so
sure.
excited about everything. And that's also something I really, really appreciate whenever we talk, because we kind of both have that childlike curiosity to marvel at this shit, you know.
Yeah.
And also not take it too seriously. I think
Yeah.
it's that whole idea, and you explained that so beautifully just now. I think even the same thing with school systems, right? You just get this whole idea fed to you, like this is how the earth works, you know, and you have like all these steps and solar systems and all of this. And you know, regardless of what you think on that matter, but like, I think it's absolutely fascinating how it's such a wonder that we're even alive, and how it all
Yeah.
kind of gets rationally explained away. And
Yeah.
it's for us to really just embrace it and say, man, like, we have no idea, and this is amazing.
Yeah.
Because I think, to me at least, it feels like the most healthy approach to find out more, but also always have in your back pocket, like, I don't know shit,
I know.
as a
Yeah.
card.
And also, I think explaining it in school, we explain it without the sort of wonder and conviction that we have as children, where it's just, oh, learn fact after fact after fact, rather than just learning that you're actually learning about, you know, we live in a freaking solar system on a planet in space like that. Or I guess if you believe that, but I kind of have my own,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I know a lot of people have different ideas about that, but I kind of believe that. But other than that, it's still like so cool. Like,
It
and
is.
that to us in school, we don't see it as something like that, because we just see it as like a task that we have to do, where you have to learn the names of the planets and which one goes where. But it's so cool that we even know about that.
Oh, for sure. And you just have
Or
that shitty ass picture of Jupiter, you know, like
yeah,
240p, and you're like, oh yeah, that's cool. But like,
yeah,
in reality, it's so
it's
amazing.
like so amazing. Yeah, like planets exist and we exist. There's a freaking universe. Look,
Yeah.
like it's just amazing, man.
Yeah, and I'm so excited for when we're all in Peru. We're sitting at the retreat at the campfire, look up and see the stars that, you know, the ancient Incans have seen as well. I
Yeah,
think that's really, the stars to me is such a ancient bridge and connection to that wonder state. Because I
for
think
sure.
everyone loves to look at a star, just star-filled sky. You know, you
Yeah,
see the Milky Way and you're just like, whoa.
yeah,
I feel so one with the universe right now.
yeah,
My life seems so small, you know, in like a
yeah,
very positive sense. And I think also, especially if you're with a group that's all kind of like us, you know, and I assume that if you book this retreat, you also kind of probably have a few screws loose, then I think it's just going to
the
be a
good
great
ones.
dynamic. Yeah. The good screws are loose.
Yeah. But yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that sort of picture where it's like, or activity where someone's looking at the stars, is the thing that represents wonder. and it's an activity that we all do. I use it a lot to represent that. And yeah, I mean, it's amazing, man. So many things to wonder about. And I think that's one of the keys to peace and happiness as well, when you are in actually that childlike state of mind where you really experience things as they are. You don't conceptualize them, you don't give them a label, or anything like that. You just appreciate the way things are and the way that they are. Just it's so simple, and it seems like so like too simple to even be the goal. But I've realized that, at least to me, the most impactful thing that I've experienced and has brought me the most peace is connecting to that. And Alan Watts kind of talks about it too, where the simplicity, the goal is, you realize it's to let go of everything that you've tried to, because I think we all start with this whole idea where we experience wonder and we have a sense of mystery and we try to solve it. We try to find the answers to all these big questions. And, what is the universe? What are we? What does it all mean? What are we supposed to do? When the answer is, I think, is perfectly described in a quote from Dune, the book, and I think the movie as well, where it says, life is not a mystery to be solved, but a reality to experience. Because when you let go of all that, you just, instead of asking, I like to phrase it like this, instead of experiencing wonder and then asking, oh, how did it happen? Why? You experience the wonder and you say, just wow, like, just look at that. And you appreciate the way things are and the way that they are. And you just notice the patterns and details of a flower or of a dog. And it's just, when you leave yourself at that, it's incredible. Like, you feel an intense amount of joy, and you feel like that sort of giggity sort of feeling of a child where, they're just running in a forest and everything's just so amazing.
It's very well said. I think it's really that marveling at the wonders. And I think, for me, sometimes what gets in my head is this idea of like why, to piece it together. Like how we talked about synchronicities, like to kind of look for them, which is also not the way to do it, where you're like, and at least I can only speak from my own perspective, but I see things sometimes and I try to like see the meaning in them, and it takes me out of that amazement state, or rather like full on spiritual constellation mode activated, trying to be like, how can I piece this together? What does this mean? And I think, if you want to stay sane, then do that in moderation.
Yeah.
Let's say
it's
like
good
that.
To have both sides, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
To have the truth seeking, but also the awe and wonder, to just experience it without trying to understand.
Yeah.
And I think a part of also understanding brings it wonder as well. Like if you dive into consciousness and how we are experiencing beings that have minds and are able to exist as something because we have a mind, and we're able to feel sensations and emotions, like that's just so amazing. And you just start appreciating everything as, when a freaking little fly just falls on my hand, and I just think, wow, look at that little conscious being, and it's like that little thing has a mind, and it feels like something to be that thing, and it exists as something, and just look at that, it's right there. And or like a dog, like you see that, and that's just not only a living being, but a conscious being. It's like it has emotions, sensations, maybe even their own thoughts, not verbal thoughts in terms of language, because they don't have language, but visual thoughts, where I think they can actually, see things in their mind.
Do they not have language?
I mean, they don't have symbolic sort of language, because when we think, you have the voice in your head, what you're doing is talking to yourself, but inside your head. In the way that I'm talking to you right now, but I just hear that in here. And dogs or any other animal, they don't have human language. They don't know what yes, no, maybe so, I am here, I am not. They don't have that, so they can't think of that. in their head. They can't say it like, oh, when you bring out the treats, they're not thinking, yes, I want a treat. They have a thought instead that is maybe an image of a treat, and then the emotion and the feeling like, oh yes, oh I'm doing it because I'm so I'm like saying I'm like saying the thought like, oh yes, but that's not really what they think. But it's we're because we're so biased about it because that's the thoughts we have.
I
But I don't
get
know.
that. I At the same time, I think when I don't know if dogs speak to each other. Like if two dogs meet each other on the street, then I don't know. Like they bark at each other sometimes,
Yeah.
and of course, I don't think they're gonna have a conversation about the Sunday paper. But like, I do feel like they're certainly communicating in one
For
way or
sure.
another. Like being like, oh, this is my street, go away, or
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's tough to say like how they
What?
really think,
Yeah.
because sometimes like you look at a dog and they just stare at you, and you're like, what's going on? Like
Yeah.
what's bothering you?
I mean, we said before that there's different ways of communicating as well. There's
True.
language symbolically with certain sounds, the ooga booga, which to us means lion or whatever, and it represents lion. But there's also just bodily communication where I just get pissed, in my face, just like that. And I'm mad, or I'm the terror, and or I get happy. And to you, that means happiness. And I'm not saying I'm happy or I'm sad or mad, but I'm just communicating it through my facial expression. And I think dogs have that as well. I definitely notice it with my dogs where just they look at you, or they shake their tail if they're happy, or they're sad and they put their head down.
True.
And even barking, I'm sure maybe that is a dog language where certain ways of barking to dogs mean certain things. Who knows?
Do they bark in their own head, like how we speak in our own head?
Dude,
Just like a dog.
that's a good point.
Bark, 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 bark. Just like in their head, they're just saying something, I guess.
They're having anxious barks instead of anxious thoughts.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wonder, because I think the really complex sort of language or bordering on language is like dolphin sounds and whale sounds, just that sort of family of animals in general. They have a lot of that sort of communication, and I think they probably, I would imagine that they can internally hear that the thing that they utter, so they can think the whistling sound that their mother whale said before, and they can hear it in their mind, because that's all a verbal thought is. For us, we do it in symbolic language where we say, or our language, English language or German language or whatever. But for their language is, because it could be whale clicks or whale sounds, and they hear that in their mind, so they are still thinking in that sense.
That's crazy.
I'm not sure though.
Like the whole animal kingdom is so fascinating. Like even here, right? Like my dad's neighbor has storks on the roof, and they fly to Africa every year and then find back that same chimney every year. They just they fly to Africa thousands of kilometers, and then they fly back and find that exact spot again. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's wild.
How does that do they how do they do this? Is it it's just straight up like a pattern, like, oh, I've been here before? But like even if they fly the first year, they come back.
I think some of them have a different form of perception. You know how we can sense sounds, we can feel like mechanoperception, where we can touch something and we feel it internally, and sight and all the five senses. But other animals have geomagnetic perception, like birds and I think turtles, where they can sense the magnetic field of the earth, and that allows them to navigate to the places where they used to breed or do whatever. And some other animals even have electric perception, where they can sense electrical activity. Like sharks don't really I'm pretty sure they don't have that well vision, but they have something that allows them to sense like the electrical activity of a fish. And all the cells in all our body are literally like little batteries. All our body runs on bioelectricity. So literally we are like, to a shark, every little organism would be like a freaking light bulb, like going like that, I'm sure, because they sense the electrical activity. But it's
Man,
crazy. We can't even imagine how that would even, if we can't even imagine how you would sense as a dog, like, which has the same senses as us, but just augmented or much more profound, so they can hear better or smell better. We can't even imagine how that would feel like, even though we already have that sensation. We already have that sense organ. So imagine it's even further to imagine a sense organ that we don't have, which is geomagnetic, something that can actually allow you to sense magnetic fields. Like how would that feel?
do we
It's
not
crazy.
have that, or have we forgotten it? Because it's also
I'm
one
not-
thing, like how,
Yeah,
like how, what is the sensor in the body of the shark that allows it to perceive that? Do you know?
Let's ask our friend ChatGPT.
Let's ask the AI, man.
Yeah, what should I ask? What is the sense organ that perceives, let's say, geomagnetic energy in birds and turtles? Because I don't think we do have that, because I'm sure it would work, and we would still have it, because I mean, I believe in adaptation and sort of evolution. So I think if we had something, maybe we did and it like faded because we stopped using it adaptively. So, like there's this thing called vestigial structures in biology, which is that kind of. But it says the sense organ that perceives geomagnetic energy in birds and turtles is known as the magnetoreceptor. Okay?
The magnetoreceptor, okay.
But like we were saying, knowing the name of something doesn't really tell you anything.
Yeah, okay.
It's just used to communicate. But then it says this specialized sensory system allows these animals to detect the Earth's magnetic field and use it for navigation. In birds, magnetoreception is thought to be associated with certain cells in the retina of the eye and possibly the inner ear, while in turtles, it's believed to involve the nervous system and possibly specialized cells in the head. The exact mechanisms are still subject of ongoing research. That's bizarre.
Okay.
That's so cool, though, that we can even learn about that.
So in that sense, though, it could also still be possible that humans have it.
Yeah, definitely.
So I don't know. Next time you just walk out, just trust that geomagnetic flow, man. Just trying to see where the current takes you.
We gotta collectively try to manifest it. We're just
yeah, in Peru, just all of us try to sense the electricity near us. We just kind of end up like mosquitoes and all fly to the light, just like run to it. I see it.
I mean, technically, we probably will do that.
High chance. I also like I like how we said like, okay, we should talk about Ollantaytambo a little bit, like the Peru thing, and we just went off on consciousness and so many different things. I love it because it's also that childlike curiosity, and I think a lot of you will have the chance to just experience that in person with us, and then we have a lot of time to talk about Ollantaytambo and all of the other places. So
for sure,
all in flow, brother.
We'll have a lot of cool conversations with everyone, I'm sure. Because everyone wonders about different things and gives their own unique perspective on the things they've understood. And you can learn from each other's own experiences and the ideas, that they've picked up on. But yeah, man, we can definitely talk more about the Ollantaytambo on another podcast if we want, or yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
In other videos.
Yeah, because I think at this point we already hit so many topics, and I think like especially for the first one, let's cut it here maybe. And yeah, we still don't have a really a name for this, by the way.
Yeah.
Did someone did a name come up for you yet?
No, I didn't. I forgot to send out the intention of doing that.
All right, I sent
More,
out the attention. I had like some things like, I don't know. I was thinking maybe there's like obviously like you're Indigo Bruno, I'm the Star Child, maybe like Indigo Children or something like that. But like I don't know. It's like it goes in the right direction because it also has that childlike, curiosity mindset attached to it.
that's I'm pretty sure one of the things like the. Oh no, it's Crystal Children. I thought it was Star Children, but yeah, I think it could. Star is more like star seeds, right? Something like that.
I just have it because a tarot reader also like has been calling me that ever since I'm 15. She just said I'm a star child, and in German at least there's different connotation to that word as well. It's the kids that die before they're being born, and my mom actually had 5 miscarriages before she had me, so it's
Whoa.
also pretty big wonder and also like a sign of honor, I guess. First of all, that I made it, and also to all the other, I guess, brothers and sisters of mine that never saw the light of day.
Damn, that's a pretty cool story though. That like pretty sad, but at the same time, like your brand name has like a very cool backstory to it.
Yeah, it came
Yeah,
to be.
profound. Yeah.
Maybe for that then, why don't we just give it up to you guys as well? If you have any name suggestions for what this podcast should be called, write it in the comments. If it's trash, we won't use it. If it's good, we may. So try your luck.
We could do something with Wonder
Oh yeah, I was thinking that too, because it fits well,
for
like
children.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
because that can
childlike
make
mystery.
because that allows us to talk about so many different things.
Yeah. Let's not be put in a box, like
Nope.
far out of it.
Yeah. And we also forgot to really film an intro. I don't know if you want to do that. It's and then later put it in there.
We had a welcome at like a half an hour in or something. Yeah,
I guess. I mean, I don't care. We can do whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I like the flow of it. I think this way it kind of feels like a casual conversation, But we also can, like, I also have no idea when to cut this.
Yeah.
like even like I don't know. Do you feel called to do an intro?
I'm fine with whatever, honestly. I think it'd be cool to try one without it and just see how people respond, maybe.
Okay, I'm for that as well, because it felt good to just kind of like shoot the shit and like drop in eventually and being like, oh yeah, hi.
I feel like it's honestly it feels so much more natural and it flows more when you started like that rather than being like a forced sort of I click record. Now we are starting this podcast, and then we say something. And when we just started, like we were still talking about I don't know what when we started, but it was just something carry on from our prior conversation. It like seems just so much more natural.
Yeah.
To do it like that.
I really prefer it as well because it doesn't set the pressure or anything. It's like a casual conversation, like how we have them in person as well, or like yeah. In person, not yet, still quite a lot of kilometers in between.
Yeah.
That will change.
Man, it's going to be so fun, dude. I can't wait.
Oh, me neither. And we're super excited also for all of you to come there. Also, I still, I don't know if this makes the cut even, but like, go drop in the comments what you think of this episode, give name suggestions. What did you like? Maybe even some subjects to include the last time for next time, because the questions for today we really managed to answer.
I wrote it down and I didn't answer it.
Oh, tough. Should we do that real quick? Like, what's the question? Come on, let's answer that question.
I think it was. Hold on, I half wrote it down. Where's my phone? It was, are they aware of indications, symbols? It was more, I think we kind of said it briefly. If the local indigenous people there are aware of, this whole idea that these megaliths have signs that they could be older, I guess, indications that they could be older. We kind of mentioned if we would bring Graham Hancock's book over there or
Yeah.
something, or mention it like, oh, have you read Magicians of the Gods? But then that would definitely not be something we would do or should do.
Nah, that's some gringo shit.
Yeah.
That's not who we are. Yeah.
Yeah.
I that's a tough one. I'd say they know best. I think that's one of those questions.
Yeah.
Maybe you just also put already on that interview card and then just ask them in person, because
Yeah, for sure.
that'd be super interesting to also hear it, not just from sources on the internet, but rather like living and breathing indigenous folk high up in the Andes,
Yeah. The like folklore of how it was built.
Yeah.
And if they say like, oh,
super excited about that too.
They say, oh, Viracocha, the god did it, or that our
Pachacuti.
ancestors, yeah, Pachacuti. Pachacuti. we kind of said that when we were filming the script, that it would be bad if we like accidentally said that in the video, or if we did it on purpose so people would comment how we mispronounced it, because it's bizarre, like how people when you say like when you do a mispronunciation or any sort of small mistake, so many people comment, and it just gets your video out there, but at the same time creates controversy. So I think people kind of do it on purpose sometimes too.
That's true. That's why if I plan to do it like that, I'd never look up the pronunciation. I'm just like, okay, let me try this one time. At least then it's honest. You know what I mean? But,
that's how you actually think it's pronounced.
Yeah, I'll just read it. Siggy Raya. Yeah, sounds good. Let's give it a shot.
Do you remember how to pronounce that word? Because I was also having trouble with Ollante Tambo. I didn't know if it was like a Spanish pronunciation or not.
I think so. Ollante Tambo. But I think it's Incan. So
it's Incan.
I don't know how you even pronounce that. And that's also like it's so difficult to really pronounce it correctly. You know, even with Pachacuti, like it's Pachacuti.
Pachacuti. No disrespect to the man himself. We're just shooting the shit here, okay?
Oh man.
Don't come at us, man.
And really, also don't take that serious, like it's all about taking it lighthearted, man. Pachacuti, he deserves respect for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah. But it's also important to have fun.
Yeah. Or the other one, what we said, like Sasquatch, because that's how
Sasquatch.
Sacsayhuaman. We gotta freaking we gotta get some flashcards and just practice while we're over there. So especially if you're like doing a sort of live documentary or something, so we can say it in real time.
Oh, for sure. Just gotta have like something in the ear. Just like you have like a local guide in the ear, like, okay, bro, how do you pronounce this? And then just like you just visit to us.
Yeah.
And we just butcher it completely, because it's
I'm sure we will continue to.
Oh, for sure. It is. But this was a lot of fun. Honestly, like I really enjoyed talking with you, and I hope you guys do too, because like we went everywhere. It still felt like this episode had a cohesion to it. Like something we said in the very beginning kind of matched with something we said at the end, with the language thing. That was nice.
And the topics like branched off as well. Like, oh, you mentioned Jung from the subconscious, then we started talking about dreams, and that kind of also connected to synchronicity, and because I had some experiences with synchronicity with my mom's friend telling me about the precognitive dreams, and it's like it all kind of connected.
Yeah, for sure. even how we went from, you know, oh, if you don't have the word, you can't express it, and then like an hour and a half later, we're talking about how dogs can
Yeah.
concept the subconscious because they lack the word for it. You know,
Yeah. It's amazing, man.
yeah, fit well together. All right, then let's call it, because I feel like we could just keep talking for 3 hours.
Yeah.
But let's just call it a quits here. Do you have anything more to say? Do you want to take another
No.
branch?
No, thank you guys for listening. Remember to leave the comments on, I guess, we're still thinking about where we're going to post this, but I guess if you're already listening to it right now, you'll see where it's posted. So
Yeah.
wherever it's posted, comment there. Any questions you have, what you liked, what you didn't like. Maybe you think we need, I mean, whatever, more structure, just have questions, anything really about the retreat, about other topics you want us to talk about in other podcasts. Yeah, anything really.
Yeah.
Anything. Ask away.
For sure. And a potential name for the show or for
Oh,
this
and that.
podcast, if you have
Yep,
it.
yep,
If you have it.
yeah,
Whatever it is, there is no right or
suggestions.
wrong. We take it or we don't.
Yep.
That's all it is. We will acknowledge it though. We will acknowledge it. All right, with that being said, until next time, and have a lovely time, you all. Bye-bye.
Much love.